All right, welcome back. We are COMP229. That's web application development in the summer 2022 semester at Centennial. Wow, it's an early morning. And it's week 4 of our broadcast. And today we've got lots to do as well as normal and very little time. But we'll see what we can do to get everything going with the stuff that I need you to get to have as you're moving towards your portfolio site, which is due this weekend, this Sunday coming up. Okay, so let's get into that. So what did we do last week? Last week we installed Express. We talked about Express, the difference between Express and Node. We have a lot of stuff on the core shell. There was quite a few videos that you could have gone through, and the videos were all with JavaScript, not TypeScript, like I mentioned before. If you wanted the TypeScript version, you'd have to kind of watch the live session with me that I had on the Wednesday. So hopefully you guys were able to do that and watch the live session. There's a lot of interesting or new information that I wanted to share with you guys. We talked about a couple of things, EJS views, just a little bit, where the views, HTML pages are created or generated. We talked about that. We did serving static files, and I even did at the end a little bit of, hey, what happens if you want to put things up on Heroku and things aren't working out for you, like they didn't work out for me. But I fixed that problem, and I'll show you what it looks like when you don't have a problem this week. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to do. On the docket, in terms of evaluations this week, things that you're going to need to do is your Express portfolio, again, is due this week. That's Sunday at midnight. And your assignment 2, which is your Express portfolio with authentication, is due week 6 now. So that's also been released. That's coming up. So hopefully you guys have a chance to take a look at those two things. Remember that, again, the first half of the semester, so assignment 1, assignment 2, and your midterm practical test are all individual. So those are things I'm looking for. So it's just you by yourself. And in the second half, we have a group, kind of session that we're going to be using. And your groups will be making a application based on the tech that I'm giving you in the first half. That's how this whole course is structured. We're sitting this week at week 4. On the course shell, we have a number of videos that I'll talk about very briefly, as well as details about assignment 2 and what I'm expecting from you for assignment 2. Okay, so that's what we've got on the course shell. So what we're doing this week during our live session is restructuring our app for MVC. We'll do that quickly. Installing Bootstrap and Font Awesome, creating a main menu, a main navigation bar with some extra pages. I'll say that as well. Creating some EJS views, that's what I'll say. Okay, so that's what we'll do there and talk about how that's done a little bit. You should already know how to do this from last week's course shell, but I'll go over that with you. So a few things. The course shell also talks about MongoDB, BSIN, the MongoDB query language, and how do you work with MongoDB shell. That's what I recommend you look at, and we'll talk about that right now, actually. So let's take a look at that course shell that I keep on talking about. So up online, remember that the expectation is that you're going to, kind of look at some of this stuff. And so you're up on the course shell. There's some documentation that I put in, as well as some video tutorials. Video tutorials are about just over an hour, I would say, that introduce MongoDB, how to connect to MongoDB with Mongoose, as well as basic read operations with Mongoose, which I'll try and go over some of that today. Okay, we'll see how far we can get with this piece. But that is what's on the course shell. And without further ado, what I'd like to try and get into is the tech part, so that we can get as much out of this session as possible. So questions before we move on. Are there any questions around your assignment 1, which is due Sunday at midnight? Any questions for the people that are here? I'm also looking at the people on YouTube, just in case you have questions on that as well. And the reason why I'm asking is because if you look up online, remember that I'm always doing a live session with you guys, right? So the live session is going to be down in here. And I always put the video up, a video link for the live stuff on YouTube. So again, if you have any kind of issues with closed captioning support or anything else like that, you can go there, and then hopefully that'll help you. You can always slow me down and stuff like that too with YouTube compared to just watching it live. So any questions before we move on? Okay, so again, what I'm going to be starting with then is I'm going to be starting with last week's project that I worked with on the Wednesday. So what that means is we were working with lesson 3 on the Wednesday. I renamed it to week 3, and I made a copy of it to week 4. This is the stuff that I'm going to be putting up on GitHub this week. All right, that's what we have. So week 4 is what I'm going to start off with. I've given you the link on GitHub, but let's go there again. So if I go there again to GitHub, our GitHub link, it's github.com/Centennial College. And we had a COMP229 M2022 Labs Section 1 that I'll be using as a starting point. Notice that we had lesson 3 for those people that I recorded on the Wednesday. Hopefully, again, you had a chance to see that. I posted it both on Discord as well as, of course, on the course shell. So that's where all that stuff is. So this is where the GitHub repository is that I'm starting off with today. Yes, Elias. I see your hand.
Good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Yeah, I have a question. Heroku works only with, for example, I was working with every week inside a repository in GitHub, like, for example, a folder within that folder, week 1, week 2, week 3.
Mm-hmm.
So to make Heroku work, I would I have to copy the week 3 folder and create another repository within GitHub, and that's the way I found to make it work with Heroku. Is there a way to make Heroku work with a folder within your repository?
Not really. GitHub? No, not really. And the reason for that is because the way Heroku works. But it's a really good question because I had the same issue with the people on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, I made another repository I called it Heroku Live Site, just to make something. And the Heroku Live Site repository was a copy of my current repository that I was working with. So that's kind of how we have to do it if we're combining all of the in-class exercises or the labs in one repository. You have to have a separate one because Heroku looks at only one repository, and your main repository has to have your package.json and all that stuff in the root of your folder. There's no choice. You can't look inside of something else. At least there's no way that I know how to do that anyway. But what I'll do is I'll search around and see if there's a way of looking inside of another folder. I don't think there is, to be honest, but that's how it's done. So that's a good question. Thank you for your question, Elias. All right, so that's kind of what we did. We're working with week 4 again this week, and I've kind of put it up on here inside of our repository here. So I'm going to put this up on GitHub for you guys. So at least you're up to speed with me. You can always download this version of the repository and move from here. But all I've done is copy the stuff from last week's Wednesday class to this one. The one thing I want to do is package.json says lesson 3. We should change it to week 4 for you guys, just to keep up to date. So that way you guys are slightly different than the other group, so we know which one's which. But more or less what we did last week, just as a recap, is we were able to download and install the Express generator, and we restructure our application, our server.ts. Again, we're working with TypeScript as an example. So we were able to work with our server.ts here. Here's our server.ts, as well as our app.ts here, and they connect nicely together, and we're going to restructure this app a little bit more today. So that's where we started off last week. Let me put this up on GitHub. So again, it's git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say added project files for week 4, which is what we did, right? Let's see if we can do that. And then git push. Now you're going to see that even though I did it here, there's still 1,000 plus project files that are ready to go. And the reason for this is because I also added in a bunch of other stuff in another week, right? So if I click there in here, for me, the reason why it's like this is because I had, I kind of quickly added the week 3 repository here and the week 4 together in one. I'm just going to say something like added week 3 files as well. That's what this is going to be. Notice I can do it right here inside of your GitHub right here. So I can kind of click this. It says commit stage, kind of comments. Good, good, good. And then I can just do a sync changes. And this way we're all up to date. There, awesome. All right, so that is, we're ready to go with this part. I'm just going to go back to our stuff right here, save our package.json, and that's the only one we've got so far that's different. So again, what we want to do today, the goal of today is some restructuring, showing you some views and helping you with your assignment 1. Okay, this is kind of what I want to do as much as possible. And then if we can get to MongoDB, I'd like to do that too. But it's on the course shell. Okay, so first let's restructure. So first of all, what we have is we have our server.ts on the outside and we have our app.ts on the outside. And a lot of times what we want to do instead of setting things up like this is I want to break it down into a server and client structure. That's typically what I like to do, okay? So in order for us to restructure that way, I'm going to make a brand new folder. So we're going to call this folder a server folder. Here's our server folder. And inside the server folder, I want all server related stuff, right? So that includes app.js and your app.ts and so on. Inside of server, before I move anything in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a config folder. So I've got server, and then inside the server folder, I got a config folder. Okay, so it's empty right now. And I want to drag and drop my routes inside of my server folder. Okay, there it is. So you can see routes is now inside of there. And notice how my index router changed inside of my app.ts. It kind of automatically updated to server/routes. There's some other stuff we need to do here, so bear with me. So that's our, yep.
I'm doing the same as you, and there's some message that asks me, will they import for rows? Should I say yes?
Or? Yes, yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to views, I'm going to move that into server. Okay, so I've got my server, config, routes, and views inside of my server folder, right? And that's so far what I've done. Finally, I'm going to take my app.ts and up to my app.js and my app.js map, these 3 files, and move those into my config folder, okay, like so. So my new structure looks like this. Okay, this is my new file structure. All right, so I got public up here. I've got server here, right, and a bunch of stuff here. Notice that app.ts is red because it doesn't know where this doesn't compute anymore, server routes. Okay, so what it should look like is just routes. All right, like so. Okay, so that's what it should look like, /routes. And why? Because or actually it should go up one. Up one to routes is what it should be, right? Because we're inside, because config is inside, app.ts is inside of config, and it has to look inside of routes. It has to go up one level to the server side, to the server level, and then down into routes. So this is the new, absolute or relative path for this. How about views and public? Those things also need to change. And public right now, I'd like to rename that to client. Okay, so almost like a client server kind of model, right? So again, I'm going to rename this again, moving towards that whole new structure. So this is client. So there's some changes, like lots of changes to make as we fix this problem, because I've created some more issues for us when I did this. It's okay, we're going to get through it. So again, because I renamed my folder to client, lots of folder changes, I might as well do it all together now. Then inside of my app.ts, which is inside my config folder now, this is the new structure. And because I renamed things to client, then this here on line 19 has to change also to client. That has to change, okay? So that is my public views. All my client side stuff is here. Views remains the same, and client remains the same, but these two things are the wrong path right now because app.ts is inside of config. It's got to go up one level to get into views. So I got to go / views. That's what it has to be. That is the views folder, this one, okay? And for client, that's clearly not wrong, not right either, because client is / / and then you can see that is where client is, all right? Because you have to have the correct path, guys, all right? Otherwise, what ends up happening is you'll have issues. Okay, so that's what our new structure looks like right now. Okay, new structure. Also, what I know is if we're going to do this express static stuff that we've done before. By the way, I'm not transpiling yet. I'm just restructuring first. Okay. We know that I want to use node modules for other things other than just server side. I want to use it for client side as well. So I'm going to use a static route. So static routing, the way it works is you can do a join, path join. And what path join does is it joins the directory name with whatever the absolute or relative path is for whatever you're looking at. It joins them into the main path. So this way I don't have to search for it, which is kind of very, very important. So the path module, which is part of the Express generator structure, allows you to include the client, or last week it was public, the client or public folder in when Express is searching, because Express is going to search for anything that's inside of the client folder without actually going to without actually using the word client in it. Okay, so it's part of the path. I want to do the same thing with node modules, and I'll just type that in. So I'll say app.use. Remember, use is I'm attaching middleware. I'm going to go express static, right? And then inside here, I'm going to do a path.join, and I'm joining the directory name with node modules. Okay, so again, if you think about what that looks like, it's .. node modules. That's what I want to attach. So that means I can always find node modules it's always part of the path to find node modules. I don't have to mention the word or the combination node modules anywhere when I'm including stuff from the node modules folder. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. That's okay. This is right. These two, all the pathing is correct now for my app.ts. That's important. I'm going to scroll down to make sure there's anything else. I don't think there's anything else right now. That's all I need at this point. I need to transpile, so Control-Shift-B to transpile, and I'm using the watch task. Okay, so again, I'll put that in there. So I'm using Control-Shift-B to transpile. That's what it looks like. And that is my, that's what I've done here. I've just transpiled to make sure it works, and there's no errors. That's a good sign. Routing, we didn't have much routing from last week's session, so it's pretty empty right now, but we're going to fill this up with more stuff today. Views, we only have one little view right now, and it doesn't do much. We're going to add to this today. And our server should point to, let's change this up so it says week 4, actually. Our server should point to our app like this. So it says import app from /server/config/app. Make sure that all your routing pathing, sorry, is correct. Otherwise, you'll get errors, and the errors are right now because we've restructured so far is because of our pathing, because we've moved things around again. All right, so this is our starting structure at this point. Let me just go through it one more time. So we have our client folder. Inside there, we have client-side JavaScript in the app.js file, inside of scripts, inside of client. So it'll be client-side scripts, app.js, right? That's what it is. That's what it looks like. In our content folder, we have some app.css, which just makes our font size 60. Let's just clean that up and get rid of it, please. We don't want anything that's in here. We'll just say inside of our app.css here, we'll just put in custom CSS goes here. We'll put in some custom CSS later on, but for now, this is probably a good thing. We don't want anything else in here for now because it'll mess us up. And in our app.js right here, as an example, notice we're not using, I'm not using a TypeScript file here, but I could, right? And in order for me to use TypeScript, all I need to do is rename this app.js on the client side to app.ts. Let's do that. So again, rename. If we're going to use TypeScript, we might as well use it everywhere. App.ts, right? And as soon as I do that, it's going to transpile so that it's app.js. And if there's any issues with our app.ts file inside of our scripts folder, this is client-side stuff. I'm just going to annotate this so you guys can see it. So again, this side here, from here is here, that's client side, and that's your app.ts. But we also have an app.ts inside of here, and this side is server side. So that's your server side app.ts in here, okay? And so you can have multiple, this is one thing that happens a lot with us, is we can have multiple files with the same name, app.ts, there's app.ts, but they're different kinds of files. And this is not on accident, this is on purpose. This is normally what we do, okay? So we can say the app configuration, the app server configuration, the app client side script. Okay, this is how it is. You kind of read it in order of the folder names, okay? That's how you read it. Okay, so this is the app server configuration. That's kind of how it looks, okay? We're talking about server. So again, just one more time. So this is server side, and that's client side, okay? And you can see here in our app.ts in the client side that there is no, we're reading a little, JSON file, which we have in our data folder right here. And the data folder just has a little bit of information, as an example, as some test data that we were using with our Node.js server and our Express server, just as test data. It doesn't really do anything. But what we want to do before we restructure anything more, before we put this up on GitHub, is do some testing. So let's do some testing. So again, I'm going to use NodeMon. And we use NodeMon because we don't want to restart our server. So we do that. And if there's any errors, they'll come up now. Hopefully we won't get any errors. Looks like we're okay so far. And what we want to do is we want to put them up on, we want to put this up on a local host like this, localhost 3000, and we should get a hello world, okay? And then what I want to do is put this up on GitHub, but before we do that, let's do a Control-Shift-J, Control-Shift-J. So Control-Shift-J, and Control-Shift-J on Windows machines anyway, what they do is they bring up your terminal. The other way to do that, of course, is you can press F12 on some machines, as well as if you're here, you can right-click and go Inspect, and then go to Console. That's another way of getting there to the same spot. You can see that I have a favicon that it's looking for right now, that it's not finding. That's just NodeMon. If you refresh, that goes away. Okay. So that is our little data. You can see that app started and it reads our data. That's how it should work from you if you pull down the exact, the same folder that I have right now. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to put this up on GitHub as a starter. Let's do that. So again, I'm just going to make a brand new PowerShell, and I'm going to do something like git add dot, and then git commit -m, and we'll say updated folder structure, right? Which is what we just did, and then git push. Okay. So now that's updated. Everything is updated as where we were before. I can close some of this stuff off. We don't need our app.css right now. We do need these two files, and I probably need my package.json, so I'm going to keep all these open. I'm going to move my package.json to 003, okay, just because this is the next version of our code. And one thing I want to do with what we're doing here is I want to add support for Bootstrap and Font Awesome. And remember that I say this on the course shell as well. Twitter Bootstrap is something that we've been using for a front end CSS framework for a couple of years now when I've been doing this course. And we do this because we want to make sure that you guys have good front end client CSS support. When you make your portfolio site that's due this Sunday, there are some rules that I want you to follow. And one of them is I don't want you to use any themes that you're going to buy. So buying themes from ThemeForest or someplace else is not allowed for this assignment. So you can't use things you cannot use. Okay, I'm just letting you know. If I see something from like ThemeForest, if I see anything like that from a ThemeForest, whether it's WordPress kind of themes or something like that, where you have themes you can download, or if I go and do something like Express themes, like Node.js or something like that, and you download some theme from somewhere else, like from Shopify or whatever, I would be very upset because you don't need this kind of stuff. You don't need this, right? Just keep it simple, and I recommend just keep it like with Bootstrap, which I kind of talk about. Okay, so no theme downloads for your portfolio site. Make it your own, but keep it with by you programming it. It's got to be your code and your stuff compared to somebody else's. I don't want to see somebody else's theme. If it's a downloaded theme, guys, yeah, I'm going to give you a 0 for your CSS. Just letting you know. Okay, so the other thing we like to use is Font Awesome. So, and usually it's Fort Awesome, right? Fort Awesome. If you look at Font Awesome, which is this thing, this is the site. Font Awesome has some great icons, font icons that we can use, right? Which is kind of cool. So if you go try it for free, notice that it has starter plans and a bunch of stuff. This is not a you can pay for stuff for Font Awesome as well, but we don't want that. We just want to browse some simple icon sets and everything else. There's some great little icons that it gives you, and notice that I can also just type in Font Awesome, and Font Awesome would give me this site. And this is the site we want to start with. So Font Awesome, kind of a very simple way of doing it. You click icons, and if I want to find an icon, like as an example, something for my home, then I can go in there and you can see there's a bunch of these icons. Now, some of them are not available because they're the pro version. All right. And the thing that you have to look at is if it's a pro version or not. It'll tell you if it's a pro version or a free version. Okay, so if I click on free, right, you can see that these are the ones that might be free. Okay, so be careful about this. Whenever you want to use an icon, we're going to show this in a second. If I click on house, you can see that there's going to be something we're going to insert to make this icon appear, but this is after we install the Font Awesome package. So the two packages we're going to install today are Bootstrap, this is front client-side stuff, and Font Awesome, those two. Let's do this together. How do we do Bootstrap first? And by the way, you can see that Bootstrap has been updated to version 5.2, the latest version. And we're also going to look at documentation. You can see the documentation is for 5.2. Notice that, the latest, right? And that's fine. If we're going to go with the latest Bootstrap version, then we got to follow the requirements for doing this, which means I need to use either npm or yarn to go yarn add Bootstrap at the specific version -beta. That's what they're looking for you to download, okay? And that's kind of the one way of doing it. You can also see other options here with gem as well as other things. And they talk about using this because they talk about you including the latest documentation, so you're on the same page. So if I click on docs for Bootstrap, they've updated things. They want you to go to this little minor release. They're looking at 5.2. Okay, so you can also download and install something earlier, like 5.13. On the course shell, it's something like 4 point something. We're not using those. We're using something like this, 5.13 and on. So I'm going to use 5.2x, which is the latest version. So the way to do that, of course, is to install it this way. Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to go into my, here in my PowerShell, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to say yarn add, right? And then it's going to be Bootstrap at, and notice what it says here, at 5.2, 5.2.0 beta, and it's beta 1. Okay, that's what it's going to be. If I just do this command, right? So again, the command is yarn add Bootstrap at 5.2.0 beta 1. That's the command. Okay. I'll also put that in for the people who are watching on YouTube, for people who want to follow along. That's the command. And I kind of enter it. You're going to see that if everything goes well, it's going to go up online, grab the latest version of Bootstrap, and install it as a dependency. Because now this is something that I want to use for my client side. Okay, cool. That's excellent. Next, what I want to do, not just Bootstrap, but I also want to use Font Awesome. How do I install that one? So going back to Font Awesome, and if we go to Start, it'll tell you how do I set up Font Awesome, and how do I get it, getting started, as an example. So if I click Getting Started, it talks about finding apps and icons and all that kind of stuff, but how do I install? What's the installation steps for installing, Font Awesome? Notice that the version of Font Awesome that we're referencing here is 6.11, and we want to be able to install 6.11 and on. Okay, so that's something that we're clear. Otherwise, we'll search for something up here and then it won't show up. Like you'll get a black icon, kind of a black square or something like that, right? So other ways to use it says on websites, in desktop apps, web API, styling icons, and uploading icons. Let's go to on websites. Maybe that'll help us. It says we can use a kit, right? We can host ourselves, right? We can upgrade from an earlier version of Font Awesome. It tells you all this kind of stuff. And it talks about different ways of installing. Use Font Awesome with your preferred syntax, with Vue or Angular or CSS. And it talks about this kind of stuff, but how do you use it? As an example, it says React. If I was going to use it with React, how do I use it with React? Well, you can use NPM or Yarn. And by the way, it doesn't matter whether it's React, some kind of front-end framework. And it tells you the command. If I click on Yarn, it says yarn add at @FortAwesome/Font Awesome SVG core. Well, I don't want to use SVG core. I want to use Font Awesome-free. That's what I want to use, the whole thing. So it says, you can see that there's other versions here, the free version that I can use, the free icon styles for Yarn, right? So free, and it talks about how to do this, right? So that's definitely how to do it. The other way to do it is to look up Font Awesome for free here. So if I do a npm Font Awesome, okay, if you do this kind of stuff, you go npm Font Awesome, and then it'll show you it. Here's the command here. So there's Font Awesome for free. This is what we want to use, right? And it kind of shows you the command at @FortAwesome/Font Awesome free. This is what we want to use here. And it gives you the npm command, but you can use Yarn in the same way. So I want to use this, and this is the link right here. Instead of npm, I'll use Yarn, because we can't go back and forth. It's either Yarn or npm. Otherwise, it's going to complain about our lock files. We don't want that, okay? Some people try and use both Yarn and npm, and then they have a problem putting it up on Heroku later. So again, it's yarn add, right, at @FortAwesome /font awesome, just like it says here, font awesome -free. Okay, font awesome -free, right? And if we did everything correctly, then it's going to add font awesome as a dependency. Okay, so I asked you last week, if you were watching the video, right, what is the difference between a dependency and a developer dependency? What's the difference? There's two different things that I'm talking about here. A dependency and a developer dependency. What is the difference? Anybody? So what is the difference between one and the other? Yes, Elias.
You mentioned developer dependencies are optional.
Yes.
And the other dependencies, we need them. That's what I can remember right
Yes,
now.
it's correct. So here, if you look at anything that's inside of your dependencies folder right here, this is required for your app to function, right? Developer dependencies are optional. They help us with coding and that kind of stuff. That's what we need. So we could actually install Bootstrap as well as Fort Awesome if we really wanted to. As a developer dependency, we can add some, code hinting here as well if we're going to program it with Bootstrap or Fort Awesome, Font Awesome, but we're not going to. But however, one thing we do want to look at is whenever we installed something, it says Bootstrap 5.2 beta has an unmet peer dependency of @popper.js/core 2.11.5. And what that means is we need to install this or Bootstrap won't work properly. That's what it means. So I want to copy this line and I want to kind of put that in here. So I'm going to say yarn add and then right click for Popper.js version. So I'm just going to grab this thing here, just highlight this, and I'm going to, let's just do that again. I want to copy it and see if I can paste it inside of your terminal. I can. This is what you need.
How do I confirm that I got Bootstrap after I executed the code?
I'll show you in a second.
Okay.
So if I do that, that is my unmet peer dependency, Popper.js, and that again would be a requirement because Popper.js, Bootstrap requires Popper.js for it to work properly. How do you confirm that you have modules? Like Elias asked, if you go to Node modules, if you open it up, you can see that there is Bootstrap in there. You know you got it. Okay, that's how you know it's there. Same thing with Fort Awesome and Popper.js. Those are the three things we loaded in there just now. All right, notice also we just made 2,000 more changes, right? 2,500 page changes because that's how many files Bootstrap and Font Awesome added in. Let's put that up on GitHub. So git add dot, right? A lot of them is from Font Awesome. Git commit -m, and we'll say added Bootstrap and Font Awesome. Okay, git push. So now your project has both Bootstrap and Font Awesome support, but we haven't used it yet. So how do we use Bootstrap? Well, let's try very basic, kind of operations. The way to do it would be first to go into my server, into my views, into my index.ejs, and notice we haven't installed Bootstrap or Font Awesome yet, right? And I'm going to do that in my CSS section first. So in CSS section, I'm going to say something like link and then /. Now remember, node modules is on the path. So typically what I would say is something like, hey, node modules, right? This is what I would normally do. Node module /bootstrap, right? So node modules, this is what I would normally do, /bootstrap / and whatever, right? Okay, that's nice. But that's not what we want to do here. And the reason why we don't want this to happen is because node modules is on the path. Remember, in app.ts, I put node modules on the path. This is the path, right? Which means I don't have to mention node modules to use it. So all I need to do is go into node modules and into Bootstrap then. And it's going to look like this: Bootstrap dist CSS And then I'm probably going to do something like bootstrap.min.css. That's the path, right? Okay, so what does that mean? It means that I'm in here, it's going to be exactly that. /bootstrap /dist / and again, you can, if you can't remember and I can't, right? I'm just going to open this up and follow this as I go. So bootstrap dist CSS, right? And then bootstrap min.css if I'm not wrong, okay? Bootstrap.min.css is the one I want, okay? Similarly, for font awesome, it's also a link. It's link, right? And then I want to do /, and again, it's at Fort Awesome. It's kind of weird, but it's valid. At Fort Awesome / let's go in there, / and you can see CSS, right? That's what we want. / and then inside there, all.min.css is what we want in there. That's the path. All.min.css. Min stands for minified. If you actually look this up, the minified version of the thing. And this is our original thing. We're going to change this later on. Elias says, what about Chocolatier package or something? Nope, we don't need that. We're not using Chocolatier. Okay, so that is our Fort Awesome and Bootstrap. We need some support down here to make it work. For Bootstrap, we need, typically, I like to include, although we probably don't need it, jQuery. Let's do that. So it's going to be script, right? Source equals to, and I go /. Again, it's node modules, but we're not going to use node modules here. We're going to go to node modules here. I'm going to scroll down to jQuery. I'm just showing you how to find it and to troubleshoot. jQuery-dist and then jQuery min.css. This is the link. So it's going to be jQuery/dist / jQuery.min.js. That is the JavaScript we need to use, right? And this needs to come before Bootstrap. Bootstrap has its own JavaScript. So again, I would do the same thing. So I would say script source / bootstrap, right? /dist / and if you notice, it's going to be JS instead of CSS. So again, Bootstrap here. Again, this is so required for your portfolio. So dist instead of CSS, you're going to go to JS. So JS, and then / bootstrap.min.js. Bootstrap.min.js. People have asked this question before in previous lectures. That's why I'm going through the details like this. Notice I am not using Popper.js. You don't need to. As long as it's included inside of node modules, Bootstrap will find it. And also notice that in Font Awesome, if I go to Font Awesome, there's also a JS for Font Awesome, okay? Again, do I need it? As an example, well, it gives you additional functionality for Font Awesome. So I'm going to put it in, but you don't necessarily need it. It's not required. I'll put it in just because. So it looks like this. Okay, just to show you again, script, source, and then /. Again, it's Font Awesome at Fort Awesome. Make sure you spell it properly. / Font Awesome, right? Just like we had before. Did I not do that properly? I didn't do it up here. Haha. Font Awesome. Yeah, because that's the link. It's hard to see because there's an extra folder. It's Font Awesome -free. Sorry about that. That's my bad. So Font Awesome -free / and then the name of your JavaScript. So JS / and then for me it's all.min.js. Okay, so that is everything that I wanted you to put in right now. So I know it's a lot, like when you first start off to get all the pathing right, and what I'm looking here in node modules, but I'm making you look at this because we're going to be using node modules for front end and back end. Okay. And there you have it. So that's how it looks right now. Bootstrap. Did I spell it wrong? Yes, it is. Thank you. Bootstrap. I know it's always weird. And so is this Bootstrap. Ooh, yes. I did it twice. I obviously can't spell Bootstrap at all. Bootstrap. Yes, that's correct. Thank you, guys. All right, so at least people are paying attention, and that's great. Bootstrap. All right, so so let's save that. And once we've saved this, now if we go back out to our Express app, if I refresh and if I did everything right, then you can see it changed shape. Take a look at this. Changed how our hello world went right to the edge here on the left, and it changed to this. Well, that really means that Bootstrap is in operation, right? Because my font changed. If my font didn't change, then we wouldn't be able to confirm that Bootstrap is working, okay? And notice also, if I go to the NodeMon, there's no 404s. 404s mean if I'm searching for one of these things in my view, which is my index.ejs right now, it would give me a 404 in here, and I don't have that, okay? 404 meaning file not found. So this is my current version. Let's put this up on GitHub. So I'll say git add dot, git commit -m, and I'll say added support for Bootstrap and Font Awesome, which is what I just did. Okay, so different than adding it and adding support for it. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because now you can always go to my repository online. You can always go to this. And if I was to, here it is. If I go to this repository that I'm working with right now, let's refresh this, that'll be okay. You can see that week 4 has all the changes. So if you want to compare my code and my code structure to your code structure, please look at this link right now. Okay, that's the link. All right, so that is good. I'm gonna put that up on YouTube as well. So this is the link that I'm looking for because this is what it's going to look like. So if yours looks different than mine, please look in here. Okay, the other thing is if you're on GitHub and you look inside of server and you look at views and you look at index.ejs, you'll see those changes I just made here. So if you don't have the exact code, you know, as an example, you have it now. Okay. Awesome. So that is the first piece. The first piece is, hey, I've installed some stuff and it looks great. This is what views would look like. Let's add some views so I can help you with your project, your assignment 1. So whenever we want to add pages to our site, as an example, there's 2 steps, if you will. First step is we look inside of the routes folder. Inside of the routes folder, you can see there is an index.ts page. The index.ts page only has a single route right now. And this single route is for the default link. The default link is when I go to my page. So that's up here. And I don't put anything in. Okay, this localhost 3000. It's almost like I have a phantom slash in here like this. Okay, I don't really have it. But if I just do this, it is my default route. That is the default route right here. Okay, if I just put the slash. And that's what this is. This is pointing to if I don't put any kind of page inside here at all, I get the default route. If I want to add more routes, for example, I want to add my home page, my about page, all those pages that I asked you for, right? And if you look at the requirements for your assignment, let's take a look quickly at those requirements because I'd like to do that with you. So to help you, so if I go to COMP229, let's look at assignment 1, and let's take a look at what you need for your Express portfolio really quickly. It says, and don't worry about the dates, but create your portfolio site, and it says you must have a navigation bar with a custom logo. and a home page, an about page, a projects page, it says, a services page, a contact page. So those are the pages you need. A home page, right? An about page, a projects page, right? And a services page and a contact page. Those are the pages you need. Okay, so if that's what I need a bunch more things in here, not just this. Also, my title right now is pretty base.ejs is a template. I want to use this template to generate all of my pages, okay, which means that all of my pages are going to have this head, and all of my pages are going to have this body right now, and so on. And if I have the title as the same thing every single time, the title is an object that I'm passing in from my router. So if I look at routes, and if I go res render, remember res means response. So I have a request that comes in like normal, and I get a response, and I'm using an express response, and I'm saying, hey, to respond to the user's request, I'm going to render a page, and I'm going to look inside of the index template. Okay, so this part here is the index template. Where is the index template? Inside of the views folder, because inside of my configuration, my app configuration, I've said that when anything I need to use, when I look at views at all, I want to look inside the views folder. That's what I'm saying. Path join, I'm joining into the directory name, the views folder. So I'm looking inside the views folder for index.ejs. Notice in my route, I never mentioned EJS here, but it's implied, okay? And then I'm passing to that template an object. My object is has some properties. The only property that this object has is the title property right now, this title property. But title doesn't really make any sense for it to be express every single time. Okay, we don't need that to be what it is. So we want to switch this out a little bit. That's what we're going to start with. And I want to think about what the title would be if I'm going to go to my slash. Well, the title probably would be home. Okay, that's what the title would be. And if I was to change this title here, so I'll press Control S to save, and I go back out to my page here and refresh, you're going to see it's going to say home at as the title of the page. There it is. Look, home. Okay, so that changed from whatever I had in here. If I change this back, if I undo that change to express and save, and if I go back to the title and refresh, you can see now it's changed to express up here at the top, right? So that is how it passes in. It passes in by going to the route. I compose when I'm rendering. So let me just annotate here for a second. So whenever I render, right, what this means is I'm composing, okay, or generating. So generate. Or actually, sometimes it's also called draw. I want to draw or generate my page, okay? That's what I'm doing here. And then the next part of it, right, as an example, the next part of it is this piece. So this part here, right, is an object that I'm passing to the index template. So this is the template, right? And this is the object that I'm passing to the index template. Okay, so just to let you know. So this is the template, and this is the object I'm passing. Object being passed to template. Okay. Okay, this whole object here. Okay, so there's three pieces to the route. Render means to draw or generate. Index is referencing the template, which is this one right here. Okay, that's the index template. Okay, so this is the template right here. Okay, that's what this is. Okay, the index template, and this thing is an object, and I can push anything in there in that object. Right now, I only have one single property called title. This is the property, right? And I can have as many properties as I want, right? Okay, just like we normally would do in C# or some other language. This is a property. So I've got a property, and here I'm using this is the value. So it's like in key value pairs, because whenever I use an object literal In JavaScript, there is key value pairs. Here's the key, title, and here's the value, express. Okay. Again, I'm going in that because I want to make sure you guys have all the right foundation for what I'm going to do next. So it's not express. Express doesn't make any sense. I'm going to call this home. And I'm also going to pass in another property called page. I want to kind of indicate to my, when I pass things in, that the page is lowercase home. And I'm going to use page to switch between pages. We're going to see this in a second. Because there needs to be some kind of switching mechanism to switch when I install content. So this is my first route. When I save, remember that whenever I kind of change anything inside of my server, then you're going to see that my Node.js is going to restart, right, through NodeMon. NodeMon is going to restart my Node server because I've modified the router, which is part of the server. Okay, that's how it works. Notice that M means modify here. Okay, questions about this, questions about the route and how routing works. So routing, we use router.get. We have the path. This is the path to the route. We have a typical callback function. This is what this part is, which takes in a request, response, and next object, right? That's what it is. And we're using a res render here. Now, caution. What I'm doing here with my router right now is I'm using both the controller and the router in one line, okay? So the controller part, if I was going to isolate the controller in my model view controller framework, is this piece, okay? So this piece right here is the controller, this piece, okay? This is the controller. And the controller is embedded in my route. Typically, this is not what we want to do, but for today, we're going to leave it just like this, okay? Next week, we'll change it up. We'll continue to move and change the stuff. So if I wanted to add another route, let's copy paste. Let's copy paste. And notice in my route, I have one more thing. I have this piece right here, right, which is router.get, is the type of request I'm making. Okay, this is the type of request. So this is a get request. I can make a post request. So this is the get request. Get request. Remember, it makes a request. This is the type of request that goes out to the server, and I can make a post request for other types of requests. Typically, when I display pages, I use a get request in my code with you guys. And when I process a page, if I need to process a page, I'm going to use a post request here instead. Okay, that's the thing. So down in here, I still want to make a get request. It's still going to be the home page, but I want to add a new root, and I want to have home as the root. Notice that it's the exact same index and the exact same title and the exact same page. Why? Because whether I go slash or slash home, I want to show the home page. That's what it means. That's why I'm using two same things. Save. And when I go back out to check it out, if I refresh, you can see it says home. And if I type in slash home, it also goes to home. Right now it computes. But if I do something like slash about does not do anything because we don't have an about page yet. Okay? It doesn't do anything. So how do we fix this about? Well, we need to have an about route. Let's add the about route in there now too. So going back to this, if I want to add more routes, and this is the kind of the first step, let's add some routes. So I'm going to add an about route. It's going to pass in the title as about us, but the page is going to be about, okay? And this is get. And when I say instead of get, let's change get to display. So display homepage, display homepage, display about page. That's what we're doing here, okay? So we're changing the route to about. That's the routing. This is the path. We're still doing a get request here. And we're still using the index template, but we're changing the title to about us, and the page is going to be the about page. Follow me here for a second, guys. Let's continue. About, right? And then projects. So this is going to be the projects page, right? And this will be our projects, or you can also call this my projects when you're doing your portfolio. So this is the projects page. And we'll say services, what services you offer your client. If you have any clients, services, what things you know how to do. So this is the services page, our services. Notice that the title is fancy, but the page is plain, services. Okay. And finally, let's put in a contact page. So display contact page. Contact, right? Contact us. Maybe we'll say something like contact us, right? And this, instead of services, it's going to be contact, plain. So there you have it. I've just added in now, this is the complete file, right? You can see that I've got home, about, projects, services, contact, and I did that by just changing the object. Really, it's the exact same thing. Every single thing is a copy paste, right? The only thing I've done differently here is that I've changed the path for each of my routes, right? So that the paths now compute about, project, services, and contact all work now on my page. If I go to about now and press enter, you can see now it says still hello world, but at the top, which is what you want to look at, it says about us. And if I change this to projects, that also works. And if I change it to services, that also works. And finally, if I change this to contact, that also works. Contact us, right? So all those things work. Now, what it says here is the same because we didn't change this. We only changed the routes. Yes. Yes, it should be lowercase, please. Okay, again, it's up to you, but that's typically what we normally do. So home, about, project, services, contact. Yay, we've put all the routes in here. Let's put this up on GitHub. So we'll say, going back to here, we'll say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added basic routes, right, in router file. Git push. That's what we did. All we did was add basic routing, okay? Without routing, your pages will never show up. You need to make all the routes first. I recommend this, okay? So please make the routes first. And once you do all the routes in your index router, so again, it's in the index.tsp file inside of your routes folder, right, that I'm using here. Then once you've got all this, this is just basic to make things go. Okay, there's nothing special about this in any way, all right? This is just basic. All right, so now that I have this basic stuff, the next piece that I want is to change my views, right? So inside of my index.ejs, this is a pretty basic template. Let's fix this template up to do more stuff, okay? More stuff. And what I want to do with this piece is I want to be able to inject content. Certainly I could just do it here directly, but then that would be one template, one page. I don't want to do that. I want to have content views in here as well. Actually, I'm going to have two types of views. I'm going to have a content view, which I'm going to inject, and I'm going to have component views like the navigation, okay? Let's make our navigation first. First, I'm going to make two folders, okay? In my views folder, I'm going to make two subfolders. I'm going to make a first folder called content, and I'm going to make another folder in my views folder, right, called components. All right, so components and content. So components would be your header and footer. Content is going to be your home, about, all this other page that I'm going to have, right? For now, there's nothing in there. What I want, if I was going to make a navigation, let's put it directly in here for now. So here's my index.ejs page. I'm still here. Let's suppose I want to make some navigation to go from one page to the other. How would it look? And where would I get it from? Well, first, I probably want to put it in a header of some kind. Okay, that's what I probably want to do. So I'd probably would have a header tag. Okay, here's my header tag. And I want to put my navigation in here. Remember that for HTML comments, it's less than exclamation mark dash dash, right? So this is where my main navigation would be in here. This is where my main navigation would be, right? And maybe I want to have a footer, and then I would have some kind of, site-wide footer in here. This is where I'd probably put it, okay? And then I probably need some kind of content area. And usually for my content, I put it in main, okay? Just to be contextual. And this would be where my content would go. So content goes here. This is where my content goes, right? So this is kind of how it's structured, which means since H1 is a hello world or some kind of hello, let's take this content here and I'll cut it out here. And for now, I'll put it here, all right? Because this is where it belongs. It belongs inside of my main tag where my content goes, okay? So really, when we think about this, this is the content section here, right? And this is my main navigation section up here, right? This is my main navigation section up here. And down here, this is my site-wide footer section. And I say site-wide because it's going to be everywhere, right? So this is kind of where I'm going to put my stuff, okay? So let's suppose I'm going to directly put in my navigation. Instead of you putting your navigation in by hand, we can use Bootstrap to help us. Let's use Bootstrap. So again, going back up to Bootstrap, I can go to Bootstrap, my Bootstrap site. I'm going to go to Docs, right? And if I scroll down on the left, you can see that they have a bunch of different things. Where I want to start looking is components here in the documentation. And if I scroll down, there is a Navbar component. And they give you an example of a nav bar right here. I want to copy this example, right? So again, notice that it says copy to clipboard here, right? And this is what the nav bar will look like right now. Nav bar, home, link, drop down, blah, blah, blah. I don't need all this stuff, but we're going to clean it up. So copy this one. And if I take this copied nav bar with all this code, which I'm going to go into in a second, and copy it inside of my header, like so, right? Then I have all this stuff inside of my header. Right? Yay, right? And if I press save, let's save this. I'm just saving my index.ejs. That means all pages that use this template is going to have the same navigation. Let's take a look and see what that looks like when I go here to my contact page, right? Notice that now I have this navigation bar here as well, right? There it is. You can kind of see it here. Again, all I did was I went to Bootstrap. Here's the link for Bootstrap for Navbar. Here it is. You can go to that Bootstrap Navbar. I'll put the same thing up on YouTube here. This is where I got it from, right? And I went to this Navbar. I clicked on this copy to clipboard button, and then I copied it inside of my files, inside of my index.ejs, inside of the header element that I made, right? That's all I did. But guys, this is pretty verbose, right? Look, take a look at this. Imagine if I was going to look at this through this file. It's kind of hard to look at Navbar. What if I add more content here and all this kind of stuff? That's why we want to separate it out. But for now, let's fix this up. So one is, I don't want to change. I don't want to have my Navbar to be light like this. I want my background to be dark. So if I go background dark, that's what I want. If I press save here, so save. And if I go back out to my files here and refresh, you can see now I have a background dark, but also my foreground is dark. Okay, so things to note. So Navbar is, kind of the one part that I want, right? But the thing is, if I want to use a header that has, background dark, right? Then I want my foreground to be dark as well. So Navbar, it says expand LG, and my background is dark, but I want my Navbar to be dark as well. And the way you do that is put Navbar dash dark. This is typically what we would do in the past, right? Now things have changed. and this may not be the way to go. Let's see what happens if I go Navbar dark here. And if I go back out to here and refresh, then we're good to go. Notice that now we can actually see the Navbar. Okay. We don't want to put in the word Navbar. Let's use COMP229. You guys would use your own, kind of header. Inside of this part right here, which is the brand, you'd probably put in some kind of logo that I've asked you to put in for your, your portfolio page. This is where the logo would go. Here inside the href, this is a link, and I want to make it go to / like this. So this is if I click on the COMP229 now, let's save that and go here. And if I refresh, you can see now it says COMP229. If I click on COMP229, it takes me to the home page. Okay. One step at a time. And if I scroll down, you can see that I have several other items. I have a drop down. I don't need a drop down, so I'm going to clean up this drop down and get rid of it. So goodbye drop down. And same with this disabled link. I don't need this disabled link, so let's get rid of that. And I also have an embedded form for searching. I don't need that, so I'm going to get rid of this form. And I'm left with a home page that has an active link, as well as another link that is empty, right? My home page clearly should have an href of /home, right? And I want to do the same thing here. I want to say that my href for my other links are the same. For now, what I want to do is let's just get rid of this. Bear with me. So I only have one link, just the home page link. And if I was just to have the home page link alone, and if I go back to here and refresh, you're going to see now I only have home and COMP229, those two things, nothing else on the page. If I want this link here, home, to be on the right side of my page, well then I need to tell it that that's what I want. So far it's ME auto. ME means I want margin end auto. I don't want margin end auto. I want margin start auto. That's what margin means. This is margin bottom 2. That's a kind of a preset for CSS to give me some extra margin on the bottom of my UL and so on. But that's margin start and margin bottom. This is just CSS classes that I'm tapping into here. Okay, so if I press save, and if I go back to that and refresh, you can see now that my home link goes way over here. Okay, that's how I did it. I pushed it from here all the way to there, and I did that with a CSS, a CSS class, MS Auto. Okay. Now this also has the active link. Active. If I take active away, and if I just say this is a nav link, if I press save, then you can see that if I refresh, you can see that the link becomes dim. It's not bright like it was before. Okay. So if I go back to active and notice it's dim, but if I refresh, watch, it becomes kind of brighter, a brighter white as opposed to a gray. That's what the active link does. It gives us a sense of where, or gives feedback to the user that you are on a specific page. Okay. For now, let's just get rid of the active link. And I want to add some decoration to my home page so that I know I'm on my home page. Let's use some font awesome. Like I said before, if I go to my font awesome, and if I'm searching for a font awesome icon, I can go to icons. And if I want the home icon, if I go home, right? And I want to definitely have free icons turned on, please, because I don't want to pay for anything, right? Then I can choose one of these types of homes. There's extra ones that they've added in. Let's see if I can choose something I haven't used before, all right? For my home. And again, you can have a home like this. Let's use this house signal link just to make it different this time around compared to what I did on the video. All right, so the way you look at it is I click onto it like so copied. So I go, this is the I tag that I need to insert in my link. Let's leave this page up and see if it actually works. So I go here, and then just before my home text, the text from my link, I'm just going to Control V to paste. So it looks like this. It says this is my link. My home is my link for the home. And then inserted an icon with an I tag. The class is FA-solid. I'm surprised this would work, honestly. FA house signal. Now, I've never made FA solid work as a free icon. Let's see if this works this time around. Maybe they've changed something with Font Awesome. I doubt it. But let's see what happens. And we go back, and if I go to home, and if I refresh, then look at that. I've got an actual icon here that is right here that looks like a little home. That's pretty cool. They changed it. That's awesome. So that's okay. And here's a link, right? I want to use link. And why am I using link? Again, make sure that free is checked. I'm using link. And I'm going to grab this link icon here. So you can copy it this way. And then you're going to go back to your brand. Here's my brand up here at the top, right? And next, just before my COMP229, I want to put that link. So FA solid, FA link, FA large. Large means a large icon, okay, large size. And if I go back and if I go to my page and if I refresh, I should have a link next to my COMP229, right? So it's kind of making it look nice. Nice. I'm just making some new stuff this time. Okay, so now that I've got this home, let's make the rest of the links. So I'm going to go home, about. This is my about page, right? And yes, you put the pick in the brand as well. Absolutely. So if you go page about, and instead of about, maybe my about, if I kind of, let's see if we have a link for an about. So if I do something like, if I try it out, sometimes I just try stuff about, but that doesn't make any sense. Maybe I want to use info because info might make more sense for us, right? Because what that is, maybe I want to use the circle info, this one, or something else, maybe that you find nice. I'm going to use this one, circle info. I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to go back to here and paste that in instead of paste this over this piece. Let's paste this over this piece right here. And also make sure that it's FA large, so that's the same size as everything else. We'll make this the about link. So this is home about, save. Let's check this out. So we'll go back to here and refresh. You can see now that I have home and about. If I click on my about, it actually goes to about us. If I click on home, it goes to home. Okay, that's pretty good.
Sir.
Yep.
Can you show real quick like your node when it shows, for example, get Fort Awesome something?
My node? What do you mean?
Yeah, like the terminal.
Oh, sure.
Oh, real quick. There we go.
Well, you probably have something like this. If you take a look at up here, this is where you need to look here. So Fort Awesome, this has to be the right thing. If you're getting a 404, it's from this thing right here, right? So make sure.
I just have Fort Awesome CSS. Oh, I'm missing Fort Awesome free.
Yeah, you need that. All right. So otherwise it won't look right. No problem. So so that's the first thing. So now let's continue with this because I want to finish this off, right? I want to, again, this is just to help you with your assignment, please. Okay. Can I try it? Yeah, not yet. Hold on a second. Let me do the rest of it. So let's do copy paste a bunch of them. So about, projects, services, and contact. I just put in a bunch of copies, right? So this will be projects, services, and contact us. Contact. Okay. So home, about, project, services, and contact. Home, about, projects, services, and contact. And now these icons have to change, right? So projects, let's see if we have a projects icon that makes sense. So again, going back to Font Awesome, we'll try a projects icon. I probably won't find something, but if I go project, right? Okay, a diagram, that's kind of neat. So they've added new stuff, which I'm pretty happy about. Let's click that, diagram project. Sure. Just to make it different, guys. You know, again, just to, you know, to switch it up here. So again, I'm just going to do this, and this will be FA large. at the end. Just easier to type that in again. Services, let's try that. So we'll go service. Nothing really. I like to use a map sometimes, as an example, map or some kind of locator pin or something like that, or a signpost. That might be something nice that I can use. Signpost. And I'll put that in there. I was hoping they had something else here today, but they didn't. So FA-large and contact. A lot of times I use a phone, but let's go and see what we can do with contact for a second. So contact. They have an address book. Meh, I don't like that so much. So then I think about like how do you contact people, a phone or something like that, or email. Maybe email might be better because there is no phone anymore, right? So you could use an @ symbol or an envelope or something like that. Something that makes sense to the user when they look at that link. Maybe I'll do contact like this. This isn't bad too. Envelopes bulk, because it has other things you can do with your contact page that might make sense. It makes more interesting. It's more interesting than some of these ones. So maybe I'll use this one today. Envelopes bulk. So again, copy that one. Going back to the page, and let's change that contact link down here. So it has envelopes bulk and then FA-large. Again, this is all new. It's awesome. Font awesome. All right, and then once we've got it done, then I should be able to go to my home page and refresh, and you can see now I have all my links. So home, about, projects, services, and contact. And when I click on any one of these links, they actually change the stuff at the top. That's how it should look. So that's projects, services, contact. Okay, that's what it looks like. Okay, and if I go to home, it says home. Awesome, that's great, right? And let's make our when I want to use the nav link active, right? Nav link active, it really depends on the page that I'm using. As an example, I want to switch out the nav link active according to the page that I want to use. So I'm not going to use an active link in any of them yet. All right, so that is my nav bar. Let's put this up on GitHub. So again, I'm going to go back to here and git add dot, git commit -m, and I'll say added main navigation, right? And this is kind of version 1 of my main navigation, and then git push. Okay, that's my first version of my main navigation. All right, so that's the first one, and that's kind of the first thing that I like to do. But this is pretty verbose, and it'd be really nice if this part right here, this whole nav bar, was in its own file. Okay, how do I do that? How do I put it inside of its own file? I'm going to use an include statement that's part of EJS. We haven't really used EJS much today. Let's use it. So first things first, I want to put this in its own file, right? I want to put it inside of components. Let's make a brand new file called header. You can also call it main nav if you want or something else, but I want to make a new file. I'm going to call this header.ejs. It's empty right now, okay? And I want to grab the header that I have from here, not the header tag, but the navigation. So I'm going to grab all this navigation stuff. I'm going to cut it out and be bold and put it inside of my header.ejs. Here's my header.ejs. Notice it only has a snippet. It's a code fragment. That's what it is, or a partial file is what we want to say. This is a partial. And this partial file is only my navigation. In my index now, I need to insert it somehow. And the way to do that with EJS is less than % and then dash include, right? Followed by an open bracket and the path. So where is this thing? Well, I'm sitting here in index. I'm going to go into components. So it's going to be something like components / and then you can see that it gives me the path header.ejs. And then I need to close off the statement, which looks like this. Okay, please do that. And if I did this, right, this inserts or injects the content. It injects the content here at line 16. So I go to my header file, I read it, I read this whole file, and I inject it inside of my template wherever I use an include. Okay, that's what it does. I'm getting a little light bulb that tells me extract Angular. Nope, we don't want that. So if I go back here and if I refresh now, we should have the exact same thing. Notice we did nothing changed. Nice. That's how we do including components. Well, let's do our footer as well. So what is our footer going to look like? Again, I'm going to go up to Bootstrap for now. Let's go to Bootstrap. And I want to do a sticky nav bar on my footer, right? So if you scroll down, you can see that there are, by the way, someone asked, Saeed, you asked for an image. This is the way you would do images for your Navbar brand right here. So right here is your Navbar brand image right here. This is the way you would do it. Okay.
Doesn't work for me. I'm not sure why.
Okay. Well, you need to have something that is an SVG or some other kind of image that goes right here. And remember, the width and the height is important because it won't fit on your nav bar otherwise, right? So it needs to go into the right spot.
So many times it didn't work.
Okay.
And I put it in the same place which you put it.
Okay. All right. So again, if it's got to be a Navbar brand, right? That's where it's going to be. And let's get an image that makes sense, that is that big, right? So again, I don't want to waste too much time with this, but let's see if we can find this Bootstrap logo SVG file so we can use that exact thing. All right. So if I go to this, if I copy this, copy image, right? And this Bootstrap logo SVG, let's see if I can get this. Or let's say save image as. See if it does that. There it is, Bootstrap logo SVG. Just to make, I would give you something else, but I don't have something right now that I planned today. Otherwise, I would use it. But I want to go into my desktop, into Centennial, and you guys are section 2 in week 4. And I want to put it, now it's got to be in the right spot. I want to put it inside my client. And notice that I don't have any folders. Let's make a new folder for this image. I'll have it under assets, right? Assets. And inside my assets folder, I'm going to put another folder called images. That's where it's going to go. We got to be right if we're going to do this. Here's my Bootstrap logo SVG. You can replace this with whatever you want. Save. Okay. And if I go back to my files, and if I look inside of client, I have assets, Bootstrap logo SVG. This is the Bootstrap logo SVG right here. Okay. And if we follow the instructions on this thing, what we want to do is we want to go inside of our header.ejs and we want to inject it inside of our Navbar brand area right here, right here. So I've put in a link. It looks like an icon tag right here, right? And if you look at our Bootstrap, it says, nope, you need to make it so it's clickable, an anchor tag. Do I have an anchor tag up here? Yes, I do. This is the Navbar brand right here. This is the Navbar brand right here. And then an image link that's in here. So again, I'm not going to do this here, but I'm going to use this as a template. So copy. Let's put both the solid and the Navbar brand in here at the same time. So again, it's really up to you. I'll make it so that the Navbar brand or the icon goes here, right? And instead of going to docs 5.2 assets, brand, Bootstrap, whatever, logo, this isn't the correct path. We do need this part. Let's see if we can find the correct path for us when we're searching. So remember that our client is included in the path. I don't have to mention client anymore. What I have to go is go into assets. So again, I'm going to go into my link for this is /assets/images/bootstrap bootstrap-logo.svg. Okay, that's what it should be. I'm keeping the width and height because we're using that same thing. Let's press save and let's see how that works. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, we'll fix it. So if I go back to here and we'll refresh, there it is. Okay. That's an icon, an actual image, right, that we're using along with our icon. So how did I do it? How did I know it was assets images and not client asset images? Because client is included on the path. We don't have to use client here. We go directly to assets images and then our Bootstrap logos SVG. Does that answer your question? Hopefully it does. All right, so, but I don't want to use this. That's not what I want. I'll keep that as an example, but I can get rid of it. And I'll leave my icon. I want to use a link there for my icon. And you can see if I refresh now, it's gone. Okay. And let's go back to what I was doing. So in my index.ejs, here it is. You can see that I've injected this part, and I want to inject a footer. So again, going back to my Navbar brand, right? If I scroll down, it says image and text. How do I do image and text? My Navbar, you know, as an example. And if you scroll down, it has a lot of different examples about how to do stuff. They have a ton of examples, guys. And this is the beautiful thing about using Bootstrap, because Bootstrap is well documented. It talks about how to use everything here, which is pretty awesome, and how to use containers of different kinds and placement. And I want to use this nav bar, which is a fixed bottom nav bar, which is kind of cool. So I want to grab this part here, and I want to use this inside of my footer. And let's make a brand new file for this. So in my components, let's make a brand new file. We'll call this footer.ejs and insert this little nav. Remember that we don't use, it's only a code fragment. That's all it is. We don't want to use some kind of Navbar brand here for my fixed bottom. Instead of this, what I want to do is something like, I want to use an H5 tag, right? And my H5 tag is going to be ampersand copy. I'm going to use the copyright symbol, right? That's what it is. And I'm going to say copyright. I've done this before. And then I want to use, for now, I want to use 2022, right? But we can inject that in here too, right? So they're always the right date. For now, though, this is okay. And we can actually put a little hashtag in here as an ID, right? Oh yeah. ID is equal to what we want, which is going to be something like, you know, our copyright, right? So I want to put in there. So the reason why I'm doing this is if I want to target this with CSS later on, it's easy for me just to target this and swap out what this says here. Instead of copyright 2022, I can just inject whatever I want in here. Okay, but for now, that's good enough. It says navbar fixed bottom background light, right? Again, if I want to make it background dark, a dark navbar, I'd have to change this CSS here as well. So save. And now I need to inject the footer inside of my index.ejs. So again, just like before, less than %. What is going on today? Less than % dash include, and then it's going to be components / footer.ejs. And then what that's going to do, it's going to eject the footer inside of my footer area. Okay, let's see if this works, you know, or not. Oh, let's actually close it off. How about that? Haha. There we go. Okay, that would work now. And we don't need this extra semicolon. All right, so let's see if this works. And we're going to go back to here and refresh. And we're going to see this little copyright symbol come down here with a little nav bar that you can hardly see. Okay. So we've got our footer and we've got our header. How do we inject content now? How do we inject content that we want? Well, we're going to put all of our content in the content pages, right? So example would be, let's make a content page that's very basic, that says kind of hello and, or, you know, whatever the site name is. Okay, so instead of hello world, what we want to inject in here is the title, right? Or the page is what we want to say, something like that. So Let's inject the title. So we're going to say if I want to inject something with EJS, it's less than % equals, which means let's inject it here, right? If I was to do this for the title, save, and if I come to here and I go refresh, you can see that that is home. But I wouldn't mind if this was inside of a container, right? So it would probably look like something like this, div with a class of container, right? And inside of there, I want to put that title. Okay, so I want to kind of put that title in there. Okay, and save. And if I saved it like this and go back out and refresh, you can see now that the home goes over here, right? Which is not bad. And if I click onto it, no matter where I go, you'll see it says project services, whatever, right? But I don't want to do the content in here. That doesn't make any sense. I want to put the content inside of its own content view. Yes? Where do we put the code for the different pages? Yes, I'm going to show you this right now. So what you do is inside of the content folder, let's make some pages. So new file, we'll call this home.ejs. And inside my home, I'm just going to copy right now the stuff that we have in my index right here, this part. Okay, so actually I'm going to copy it inside of my home. So this is home. And for now, they're all going to look the same, right? But they're going to have different content in here. All right, so this is my home. And let's put in the rest of my pages by making copy paste. So I'm going to kind of copy paste this one. So copy paste. We'll call this about, rename, about, paste, projects, paste, services, paste. So home, about, project, services, contact, right? Those are the pages that are inside my content now. They're all the exact same, okay? But don't worry, they're just placeholders for now, right? And what I want to do, how do I get to those pages in my content folder? This is the question that Paul was asking. How do I do that? Well, we need to have some kind of switching mechanism to switch between one page or another. We need to detect which page I want to load. And that's very, very simple with EJS. Now, one thing is, let's go back to my content and all this kind of stuff. So in my About page, I actually included the container. And it's up to you whether you want to make it a container here or not for every single page. That's why I did this. And so what I'm not going to do, I didn't do it like this before. I put the container here, and then I put the, I inject here. I'm not going to do it this time because people have complained that when I put the container, I'm forcing people to use a container, and I don't want you. I want you to have freedom. So that's not where it's going to go anymore. But here's where I'm going to do the injection, right? So here's how the injection looks. Less than % dash, and I want to include, and now remember what we set up already. We set up two things. We set up a title and we set up a page. Remember the page that I sent up? And I did that inside of routes. I did this on purpose. I've made pages for all the routes. This is the way we're going to detect which page we're on. So if I go back to my index.ejs, I want to do something like, looks like this, include content slash, right? And then the page number, I can compose it the way I want. Page, right? Plus and dot EJS. Isn't that beautiful? Right? And then I can kind of do % greater than sign. And this will inject the page from each content, each page from the content folder in here. That's how it's going to work. So if I did that, and let's just clean up this file a little bit. We don't need the extra spaces. We now have our template, right? So if I go back and if I refresh, right, you can see still I have got home, about, projects, services, and contact. It's seamless, but what's happening is we're loading from these places. So it looks like they're all in the same template, but they're actually being loaded from different places. So why do we do this? Because it's far easier for us to load from a page and only look at a little bit of code, right? As opposed to a massive page of code, right? I've got a little bit of code that I can change stuff up, right? Here, and I can make changes to make each of these pages look different. These are just placeholders. Guys, you can change whatever you want in here and put your own pages in here, HTML in here as much as you want, okay? That's how it works. And this is where you would use this structure to put all your content in each of these content areas now. I recommend you put all your content in a container, but you don't have to if you want to style it differently. That's why I've included the container in here. Okay? So that is the way we've done it, and this is how we've used our template for the first time. Let's put this up on GitHub. So git add dot, git commit -m, and I'll say added basic, or we'll say completed basic template version 1, and git push. There we go. Questions around this structure that we're using. Now, I haven't really talked about Mongo and anything like that, but that's on your course shell, and it's not relevant to your first assignment, which is your Express portfolio page. Guys, I've given you everything you need to be successful with your Express portfolio page pretty much at this point. Things online as well as things here inside of the stuff we've been doing, okay? You shouldn't need to have much more than this to make it go. Let's put this up on Heroku now and see what this looks like. I'm just going to close all of these pages off. Okay, so you can see that. How do I put this thing on Heroku? Okay, because that's important to do. Exactly. Bhupinder is just about content. Exactly what I said, which is that's a perfect thing to do. I want to put this on Heroku, but I can't use this project, right? This is a great starter, right? But what I want to do is if I look at my folder structure, I talked about this really briefly. I said that you cannot on Heroku, if I want to make this on Heroku, if I go to my my structure, I have a separate site that I created called Heroku Live Site. That's what I called it, right? And on Heroku, let's get there. Let's go to Heroku for a second. Here's Heroku.com, right? And it's going to ask me to log in. And I've also put in, it says verify my identity, right? So a lot of times, what I want to do is two-factor authentication. That's what I want to do, right? It says verify your identity, and it says, kind of do the verification code for Salesforce. So Salesforce gives you a verification code, right? And what you can do is it'll give you a little authenticator app that you can use. And the authenticator app, it'll tell you how to put it in, typically, for Salesforce if it has an authenticator. So notice that there is a different kinds of authenticator that you need to use, okay? It's a Salesforce authenticator. It looks a little different, right? And what it's going to need, right, is what it's going to look at is an kind of a little code. So I'm just going to put the code in here that it gave me, 223. And if I click verify, everything should work. And now you're good. And this little authentication piece is going to prevent us from having that problem that I had last time as well, if ever they get hacked again, because I have an authenticator now. So now what I did was last day, I created a COMP229 in the summer 2022 section 1 kind of link. You guys are section 2. So I'm going to make a brand new thing to see it from the beginning. So I'm going to make a brand new app. Here it is. Here's what it looks like. It's going to be called the same thing. So again, COMP229 in the summer 2022, and it's you guys are section 2. There we are. And then I'm going to click create app. It's going to generate an app for me. And then the place it takes me to immediately is where it says deploy. Okay, this is the deploy area. There's 3 methods of deployment. Last day, I used Heroku Git because I was having problems, and it's good that we did this. If you ever have a problem, you can use Heroku Git for this as well, right? And I need to make a connection to GitHub. However, if I look at GitHub right now, GitHub that we're using for your COMP229 labs, well, it has a bunch of stuff inside of it. You don't want that. What we want instead is to have a separate link, right, for my Heroku Live site. So I need to have something in here to do that. Let's make a brand new repository. So again, up here, brand new repository. I'm going to call this Heroku Live site, right? And then, of course, for you guys, section 2. So I know who it is. It's you guys. You need to make it public. Well, actually, you don't need to make it public. You can keep it private if you want, because it's going to be connecting directly to Heroku. And this is the difference between your live site as well as your working repository. Sometimes people do it in one. I don't recommend that. I recommend having a staging site, which is what we've been doing here with our COMP229. This is kind of our staging area. And then our final version is going to be pushed to my Heroku Live site. I recommend that process because that's how we do it in real life too. So this is our Heroku Live site for section 2. Right? I'm making it public. For me, you can make it private and include me if you want. And then I'm going to click Create Repository. It's going to give me steering instructions on how to connect to it. I need to do that work down here in my on my course. Sorry, in my operating system. I'm going to make a brand new folder. I'm going to call it the same name, Heroku Live Site Section 2. That's you guys. All right, so we're in the same boat, if you will, okay? And what I want to do is I want to go into Visual Studio Code and close it off, please. Please close down Visual Studio Code. All right, and I'm going to grab the file week 4, but not the folder, the stuff that's in the folder. I want to grab all this stuff that's in the folder, including node modules, please. I want to select it all, copy it. It's going to take a second. And go back into Heroku Live Site for section 2. You'd call this whatever you want it to. Maybe you're just going to call it Heroku Live Site or something else like Live Site. Doesn't matter. And then in here, I'm going to paste it in. It's going to take a second because I'm copying node modules and there's a lot of files. Johan says, do we have to do our assignment in TypeScript or is JavaScript okay? You can do it in JavaScript, but I'm telling you, if you don't do your stuff in TypeScript, it's going to come back to bite you in the second half because it's a lot of code and it's much more difficult to use to do it in JavaScript with no code hinting compared to TypeScript. But it's totally up to you. I've given you JavaScript online. If you want to stick with JavaScript, it's going to be okay with me as long as you follow my structure. Okay. Sometimes I've received stuff, the people have used JavaScript and they've stolen it from some other places. I can tell. All right. So hopefully you're using my structure and you're good to go. All right, so Heroku Live Site Section 2 is what I'm using here. And what I want to do is I want to take this folder and open up Visual Studio Code again. So again, Visual Studio Code. And I want to drag and drop Heroku Live Site in there. There it is, Heroku Live Site Section 2. And what I want to do here is I want to set it up for the first time. So git init, git add dot, adds everything. Right? So I initialize it first, git init, git add dot, and then after it adds these thousands of files, it's going to go git commit -m, and we'll say initial commit because it's our first time we're doing this for our live site. And then I want to set up our code for this. Remember, there are steering instructions for connecting to my remote is up online. It's here, right, where we just made it. So I'm going to grab these last three lines of code here, which give me my information from my live site. Copy them, go back here to my terminal and right click, which for Windows users pastes it immediately inside. For Mac users, you gotta paste it in manually or type it in. And then press enter. And what it does is it pushes it up to my new repository. That's what it does. And if I look here and refresh, you can see here that I have my repository and it's set up with this. It's exactly the same as my last week 4's code. But now I've updated it with this stuff. Yay. I want to push this up onto Heroku. And the beautiful thing about Heroku is if I go there now, now that I've got a GitHub repository, right, I can go to my GitHub Connect to GitHub link here in my deployment. So I'm in deploy, 3 options. I'm going to go to the center option now, and it says, hey, because you may have to authorize yourself. It may ask you to authorize you for the first time. But here, what I'm going to select is Centennial College, and then I'm going to search for my repository. I'm going to say COMP229-M2022. And if I press search, right, you're going to see if there's any repositories that match, and there's 2. For us, we've called it Heroku Live Site. So if I go Heroku just by itself and press search, then we might have some sites that match. And there is one. There's a Heroku Live Site section 2 that I just made. And I'm going to click connect. It's pretty simple. So how did I do this? I had to authorize GitHub. That's what I had to do to work with Heroku. I had to do that. And I did that ahead of time. You may have to do it now. It's going to ask you about this now. And then you select your account and search for the repository you made to put up on Heroku. It's got to be a repository that has all this stuff in the root. It cannot be in a subfolder. Okay, that's what we made a mistake with last week. And then if I click connect, then what it's going to do is it's going to connect my repository to my Heroku Live Site. It says, hey, do I want to deploy the branch? I want to enable automatic deploy. So I'm going to click on this link, right? Again, this is all required for your portfolio site. And then I'm going to click deploy branch. And what deploy branch is going to do is going to show you what's happening for the deployment. If there's an issue, it's going to come up right here. Okay, so it's installing engines, it's resolving my node version, it's downloading and installing stuff for me, it's installing dependencies and node modules. And then once it's finished doing all this stuff, it's going to push this up onto Heroku. And when it's done, it's going to give me a little bit of a link that it's going to tell me that I'm ready to go. Watch. So 51 megs. And it gives me this link. This is the link. And it's going to give me a button, which is view. If I did everything correctly, and if I control click this button, it's going to give me this site. And this is the site that I made. Here's my site. My fully qualified name for my site when I ask you for this is COMP229 M2022 section 2.herokuapp.com. That is the site. And so why don't you guys try this out and see if you can get to it. Here it is. Try that site out. You should be able to get to it no problem now. Okay? All right, and if you go there, this is live, right? So if I go there and I check this out, I can go to each one of these pages, no problem. Okay? This is how I want you guys to share it with me. Okay, problems I've had in the past with students who've done their portfolio site. Your GitHub link is inaccessible. Remember that you want to share with me. GitHub link should be private, and you should share with me, my last name at hotmail.com. This one, okay? Do not automatically try and find me up on GitHub because you'll find 2 of me, right? So if you go up on GitHub and let's suppose I want to add someone to this thing, I can go to settings and I go to collaborators and teams, right? And I'm going to put my password in. And when I go there, it'll say, hey, how do I want to add people? I want to click add people. And if you just search for me, like this, there's 2 of me, right? There's me and me, right? You don't want to use this guy that has Tom.Siriopoulos, not me. You want to use this one. And the way to confirm it's this one and not this one is put in my whole email address, Siriopoulos@hotmail.com, all right? That is my general inbox, and that's the one you want to use, okay? I'm recording this for you because people notoriously add the wrong one, or they add someone else, or they forgot to even add me at all, right? So it's private. And if it's private, I can't get to it, you'll lose marks. Number 1. Next, once you've added me, you need to give me the entire link, a working link to this. It's not this link. This link here is the dashboard. If you have something like dashboard, Heroku, blah, blah, that is incorrect. Don't give me this link. It's the live link. It's this one. COMP229-M2022, whatever yours is going to be called, .herokuapp.com. That's it. From here to this, okay? That's what I want. Okay, if you give me something else and it doesn't work, you're going to lose marks because it won't be live. So please make sure you do that as well. All right, so this way I can navigate from home, about, project, services, and contact. Okay, are you with me? Check mark if you're with me. If you've got any questions, now's the time, because I want to do one more thing before we go for the day. Okay, got some people. I got Said. Use the check mark, Said, if you could. Yeah. Elias?
I have a question. It's a quick one. I did it, but in my live Heroku site, it's like there's no the Bootstrap or the CSS.
That's because,
the styling is not there.
Yeah, that's because of your pathing. So remember that if your path is incorrect, so that means inside of your server, views, index.ejs, if this is incorrect, right? If you're not doing / or whatever, if it doesn't look like mine, right? And or if your configuration, your app.ts is incorrect for client node modules or views, right? You will potentially have issues when it comes to showing images and fonts and all that kind of stuff, right? That's where it is.
But in localhost it's working.
Right, but it doesn't matter because remember that there's that on Heroku, right? And this is another reason why it might happen, Elias. On Heroku, it uses Linux, right? And on Windows, it uses Windows. And if you're working with Windows, not Mac, and I'm guessing you're working on a Windows machine, yes?
Yes.
Yes. So if your naming convention is different, for example, if you have routes, capital R, just be careful, and Windows sees it as lowercase. If it's mixed up here for Windows, it doesn't matter; it'll work. But for Linux, it will not. Linux is case sensitive, so keep that in mind too. That could be another reason why it's not working. So you and I can troubleshoot. If you have time after this, I can troubleshoot it for you. But that's the major cause of it. It's usually either pathing, could be a pathing issue, or it could be a naming issue, right? For example, Windows doesn't care if it's upper or lowercase, but Linux does care. And if you give the wrong path with the wrong name to Linux, example, if it was something like .. // client capital C, but your client was spelled with a lowercase c, Windows would work. Or the other way around. But Linux would not. Linux would fail.
It's better for me to check in GitHub how is the capital, if it's with capital letter or not, in GitHub, not in my Windows machine.
Yeah, Windows machine might report that it's capitals, but meanwhile in GitHub it's lowercase. And we can fix that. There's a way of fixing it. I did fix it for my problem. I had the same problem last day. And the way to fix it, which is kind of ugly, is rename it, like change the name to something like my client, something totally different. Right? And then rename it back to capital C client, and then it'll work. It's dumb, but that's how it works. Right? Because, does that make sense? So, because if I try and rename this thing from capital C to lowercase c as an example, it'll fail. Because Windows sees it as this, I'm not renaming anything. Right? But if I change the name from client to my client, that's definitely a change. Right? And if I change it back from my client back to lowercase client, then it'll work because I'm changing completely, something completely different, right? But if I go to capital client to lowercase client, it's the same name for Windows. It doesn't make any difference.
Okay, so to recap, we put in GitHub a private repository.
Yes.
And that private repository, we're going to add you as a collaborator.
Please. Yeah.
And we're going to share with you what you said, the Heroku URL, right?
Yeah, this is the one. You want to give me this one. COMP, whatever your name is for your project that you put up on Heroku. This is your project name on Heroku. .herokuapp.com. That's really the link. Right.
So with this link, you can see the view and how it looks, and GitHub, you can see the code how it is. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, correct. That's exact. So then I can kind of look around and take a look at your project and then give you feedback directly. I should not have to download your zip archive. I should be able to look live on your site and look in your GitHub for any kind of code that I need to look at. And I
Okay,
ask
so
you, hold on, I ask you also to load in to give me your zip archive as a backup, just in case something doesn't go right. I can give you part marks. Yes, go on.
okay, so in assignment we shared this link, the link,
Yeah.
a zip folder with everything.
Yes.
And you don't need like my repository link.
I do. I need your
those three things.
Yeah, I need your repository link. I don't need your live site link. That your live site repository, there's 2 repositories, right? You might have 2 repositories. One repository for your work, like we're doing right here. Another repository that you're using to share with me your live site, right? And then your actual live site link. You might have a link. This is the link, right? And remember, I have a bunch of repositories too. Look, for me, I have a couple of repositories, right? I have this one, which is week 4. That's where I was working. This is my working repository. This is the one I want from you, this one, okay? But some people, what they do is they give me both. They give me that one and they give me this one. I'm okay with it. It doesn't matter to me how you give it to me. Honestly, I really don't care, okay? As long as I get your GitHub repository. However, I want to mention something. If your GitHub repository for this one, right? Notice that in here I have like, I don't know, X number of commits, right? But in your Heroku live site link, I have 1 commit. Look, I only have 1 commit. That's not good. That shows me that like, well, I only have 1 commit, and you'll lose marks for that. You have to work with GitHub the entire time. It's not just single commit. A single commit means you've copy pasted, or you're using this as a backup, not a working repository. All right, so that is the process. But let's do one more thing before we go. I'm going to bring up my working repository, which is my COMP229 M2022 for you guys, which is this one, week 4. Let's bring that in there. So I'm not anymore on my live site. I'm on my working repository. Okay. This is almost like a staging site. That's what I call it. So it's called, in real life, we call it a staging site.
Sorry for asking a lot, sir, but
no problem.
If you said in the live, it's bad to have 1 like commit because my working repository is the one that has every week.
It's not. It's not a bad. It's if you only give me your working live site, then I only get 1 commit. But if you give me your working repository, I get all your commits, right? Paul, yes, you can. I'll sit back after class for you. All right. So guys, I'll hang out after class for any kind of questions you have. When I stop recording. One thing we need to do is put this up. We have to add this week's lesson is something we didn't get to, which was we did all this stuff. We did we did all this, right? And what we need to do is we need to install MongoDB and also register for a MongoDB Atlas account. Okay, we already did this piece. So we just need 2 more pieces to do, guys, these 2 pieces to make sure that you guys are ready to go for next week's class. Okay, and also for this week's course shell information. Okay, so let's do the installation for MongoDB. Where do you get this stuff and where is that? Well, it's on the course shell, but what I would do is go to MongoDB, mongodb.org. And under mongodb.org, we want to download, right, where it says try for free, right? Well, here it's MongoDB Atlas we're trying for free if you go here. So you need to sign up for this anyway, MongoDB Atlas. You need to do it, right? So this is something you need to do. Sign up for MongoDB Atlas because that's going to be our cloud version of our database, right, that we're going to be using this semester, okay? I've already done this, but what we need to do is download a local server, okay? So if I go to products and if you go to database, right, let's take a look over there. And yes, we can deploy a database and it says again, try for free. And if you did that, it takes you back to MongoDB Atlas. So that's not where it is. And the reason why I'm going there, guys, is because people have asked me, like, I don't know where to get MongoDB. Let's go back to products. And notice here we have Atlas. That's where you clicked. Enterprise, that's how it's organized. And Community Edition, that's what we want. And I want to click on Community Server. And under community server, you're going to see that there is a current version for the server, which is 5.08 current, this one. Okay. Do not grab a release candidate, please. Just grab the current level 5 server. Okay, that's what you want. Okay. And then you can choose your platform, Windows, right? Or Linux. And for Mac, there's the Mac OS version. I recommend using Homebrew, guys, for Mac, not the Windows, not this little link here, but for Windows, you need to do it this way. Okay. You're going to download the package, and please install the package for your MongoDB. But one thing to note, I'm going to install it together with you in a second. So let's download this package. Here it is, right? And I'm going to put it inside of my downloads folder, okay? And I'm doing this because I want to help, not because you can't do it by yourself, okay? I know you can do it by yourself because you guys are all developers, but this is what it would look like, okay? Here's MongoDB version 5.08, okay? Notice it's a 64-bit version I'm using for Windows. I click Next. It's going to ask me, do I want to accept the license? I want to say yes. I'm going to click Next. Now, it says choose the setup type that best suits your need. I'm going to choose custom. That's what suits my needs. And it suits your needs too, guys. Okay. Notice the path. C program files MongoDB server 5. What do I have? Okay, so I already have this installed. Let's take a look here. So if I go to, again, C, right? Look at the path here, right? C program files. Here's program files. MongoDB, I already have it installed. Server 5. It's already there for me, okay? So that's where it is. Click Next. It's going to ask you, do you want to install MongoDB as a service? Guys, do not check this link. Uncheck it. We're not going to use a service because primarily we're going to use it for testing, and then we're going to put it up. We're going to use the cloud-based service instead. So uncheck this one. Do not use this one. Then click Next. And it's going to say, do you want to install MongoDB Compass? The answer is no, we don't need it. So uncheck this. Click Next. And then it says, okay, are you ready to install the latest version? Sure, let's click Install. All right, and it's going to do it for us together. Let's do it together, guys. All right, and the reason why I'm doing this is because this way you can have what I have. There's no issues, right? And otherwise, if you don't do it this way, right, then what's going to happen is you and I are going to have different things, and I don't want this to happen. Okay, so you can see it updates the components. I already have this stuff, so it's just going to copy new stuff in there. It's going to overwrite the stuff that I already have, and then I'm done. There you go. Yours might be done now too, or very close to it. I'm going to click Finish, and then to test it, I'm going to go to my command prompt and press the following command to test this out. It's mongod, right? And yours probably will not work starting off. Let me just, actually, before I go there, it's not going to work for you. You need one more thing before you get this working. In your C: folder, by default, you need a data folder with a DB folder inside of it. Both of those can be blank right now. But you need to manually create a data folder in your C, like on the root of your drive, a data folder and a DB folder inside of it. Please do that now before you test your installation. Okay? And once you created a data folder and a DB folder, which should be empty, this shouldn't have anything inside like me, right? If you have that empty like this, and then I should be able to go to Mongo, and I should be able to say something like mongod, like this, which is actually the Mongo daemon. It's not mongod, but the Mongo daemon, okay? And if I press enter here, it should start your server. That's what it looks like. And the server is going to be started on a particular port that is port 27017. That is the default installation. This is how your MongoDB would look, right? If you don't do this, then next week we'll not be able to continue with class For you, you will have problems. Please make sure you install MongoDB as soon as possible. To stop the server, Control-C to stop, right, a bunch of times. And you can see that the server is stopped. One other thing you need is Mongosh. That's a new thing now, all right? Before we didn't need it, but now you do, right? So if I type in Mongosh, download. So if I type in download Mongosh, this one, it's install Mongosh, this thing here right now. So let's copy this and put that in there. I know, I'll fix that, Elias, for you in a second. But that's the other installation I want you to do. Here is the download for Mongosh. It says the MongoDB shell, and it's this version right here. Please download and install Mongosh too. All right, let's do it together. So I'm going to download Mongosh. Here it is. All right, and when I download here Mongosh, this thing right here, this is the link that I just gave you. Okay, and I install it, and I click next. I gotta have MongoDB closed for this, by the way. It says program files Mongosh is where it's going to go. Okay, I don't want to install it just for me. I want to install it for everybody. So how does this work? Well, here it is. So again, it's program files. This is where it's going to go. Mongosh. Right? Here it is. Look at that. There's Mongosh right there. I already have it, but let's try and see if we can install it again. So click next and install. And then you should be done in a second. Awesome. So how does this work? Well, first you got to run your server. And in your server, you're going to type in mongod. This is your server. And then to run Mongosh, you need a separate command prompt. So here's my command prompt, and I want to just write down Mongosh like this. And if I did everything properly, you should get something that looks like this. So there's two parts to using Mongo locally. One of them is the local server that you need to kick off. And the second part is some kind of terminal. And the new one, the old one was Mongo. The new one is Mongosh. The Mongo server, which is just Mongo by itself, is now deprecated, right? And it tells you a couple things here when you run Mongosh. It tells you the version that you're running for MongoDB. Mine is 5.08. And it also tells you the version of Mongosh that you're running, which is 1.42, which is important. It also tells you the link for MongoDB, which is this one. Okay, that's my direct link. And then I can simply do a CLS, and I can do a show DBS. Show DBS, and this is all covered on the course shell, and I did a video for this already for you, right? It shows you the databases that I have here, right? These are the databases for show DBS, okay? We're going to do more of this next week. I'm just going to exit out of here, right? And I'm going to Control-C to stop my server. Now, what if you can't get your server and you get an unrecognized command, which is what Elias was asking, right? You need to do some work with your environment variables. So on Windows, what you can do is if you type in advanced system settings, if you start typing advanced, you'll see that there's an advanced system settings here. If I click onto that, it's going to bring me to this link, system properties. So again, I'm going to go to advanced system settings down here, advanced. If you typed in environment variables, it'll also take you to edit the system environment variables. If I type in environment, it'll do the same thing. It'll actually take you here again, okay? And on the bottom, you can click on environment variables. There's two types of environment variables in Windows. There is a local environment variable. All this up here is for your local environment variables. This is local up here, okay? And down in here, this is for all of your users, for the entire, if you were sharing your computer with somebody else, other people, this is for everybody, okay? Typically what I do is I put it in both places just in case I want to have a secondary user use my stuff, right? Or even as a backup. So there's two paths we have to modify. There is a path variable here in the local users. That's for you only. If I double click on this path, it gives you a list of stuff. Notice my C program files MongoDB server 5.0 bin is here. This link right here is what you need to put in here in order for you to use it. How do I put it in? If you double click on any one of these empty spots, you can put the path in of where your MongoDB is. This is how you correct the error. So how do I get that path? I'm going to go to my Windows system, the file system. I'm going to go to my PCC. I'm going to go to program files as an example. Here's program files. I'm going to go to MongoDB. That was the link. That was the path, MongoDB. I'm going to go to server 5 bin. And this is where mine lives. I can edit my address. And this, my friends, is where mine is. So this is the link that I have. Okay? Yours might be different, but this is where I put mine. I copied that in the chat for you. Once I have this link, right, this link right here, then it's a simple process of me going back into my environment variables, double clicking and pasting. That's all, right? Once you've got that link, now I already have it, I'm not going to paste it twice. That's one. Notice I also did the same thing for Mongosh. Mongosh is there too, all right? This way it's available for me on my terminal window. In order for you to do this, you should make sure right now that there's no terminals open. So if you have a terminal open before you press OK, close off all your terminals as well as your Visual Studio Code that has a terminal built into it. That's why I pulled it up. So let's close off Visual Studio Code, please. And then once you have your path in here, press OK, and you're good to go. Now, once you've done that, I also want to put it in this path. Notice there's two paths, a path here for your local users and a path here for everyone. This is also a place to put it. And I put it in both places to make sure that and for some people this fixes the problem. I'm going to double click on my path here. Notice there's many, many other ones here. You have other things here too, right? Well, this is where a lot of files get installed. And what I want to do a lot of times is put it in here as well, okay? Now, I didn't need to, but here it is. There's my MongoDB server 5 bin, okay? I'm showing you this because this way you're clear on how to fix this problem. This is the way you fix it, okay? And once we have it in both places and you press OK for all that stuff, now let's test it again by closing this off, and going to the command prompt and typing in mongod ---- version. And if we did it properly, you should see something that looks like this. Awesome. Excellent. That's good, Elias. And the same thing with Mongosh. Mongosh ---- version should give you the same thing, 1.42. Something that looks like this, okay? Are you with me? Check mark if you're with me, X if you didn't do it, or you couldn't do it. Because without this, guys, next week will be a real difficult week for you guys to do, stuff with me with MongoDB, okay? And anything on the core shell that I've shown you with my videos will not work for you, all right? So I go through the same kind of installation process, but now that you've seen it, you know how to fix it. All right, not all of you did it. I've got 8 out of 23. Hopefully the rest of you are doing it or will do it in the future. Thank you. So why did I go through that process? Because I know it's coming, and this is a prerequisite to what's happening in the future, okay? So there's 2 parts that we didn't do. Like I said, one part is this MongoDB installation. That's a check mark. Please also register for yourself for a free MongoDB Atlas account. There's different ways of doing this. And the way to do that the easy way is to go up on MongoDB, right? And if you go to products, you want to go to database. It's going to take you to the try free. And you're going to go here and sign up for your free account. You can even sign in with Google, which is what I did, right? That's what I kind of did. Let's go back. So if I go into sign in, it's going to ask me to sign in with Google. And then without anything, I'm just going to sign into MongoDB Atlas, okay? And it's going to show me some other stuff here. Later on, not today, But another day, you and I are going to make a MongoDB Atlas-based or a cloud-based database. For now, you need to be ready by signing up for MongoDB Atlas. It's not required for assignment 1, but it is required for assignment 2. So make sure you have it ready to go before we go to the next step. Okay, guys, that's all I have time for today. Any questions before we stop recording this stuff and go to questions? I'll actually stop recording on YouTube. Which cloud provider do I recommend? Are you talking about for your assignment? Oh, I recommend Azure. It's going to ask you which one. Just choose Azure, Microsoft Azure, right? But it doesn't really matter because we're not going to use Azure. It's just asking questions like which one, where do you want it? And the reason why you can do that is because it'll ask you from a deployment perspective where you are, and you want to be in like, you know, the Eastern United States or in Toronto if you can. Okay. And that's what it says here. Look, Azure, Toronto, Canada Central. This is where you want to go. That's your region. Okay, that's what you're choosing, and you're choosing a data center is what you're choosing. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions for the stuff we covered today, I'm gonna stop recording. And which way do I authenticate? I recommend. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you want to create your own account. I just use Google. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I want you guys to be to make it the easiest as possible. Google works fine. It's just third-party authentication. All right, so I'm going to stop recording here on YouTube, and then I'll take any questions you might have locally. All right, so any questions?